Hi, folks. Oh, it's nice to be back. Here we go then. I'm going to start a whole new run of these little YouTube shows for you guys. Really appreciate you tuning in. And this week it's a really special one because I don't know if you're aware or not, but cinemas are open. Yes. I haven't been myself yet, but I plan to go kind of as soon as I blooming well can. And the film that I really want to go and see, that I will go and see to support, is the film that we're going to talk about today. It's called Summerland. But before we get into it, I know that for some of you, you may not feel comfortable with going to the cinema. It's all very early days and things like that. But if you are feeling up to it and comfortable with being in that environment, then please go and check out this brilliant film. It's called Summerland, and it's been written and directed by a wonderful lady called Jessica Swale, who is hugely successful playwright and director. And in fact, she's worked with both her leading ladies in the theatre, Gugu Mbatha-Raw and Gemma Arterton, and they forged pretty strong friendships immediately and have gone on to work together numerous times. The film's called Summerland, and Gemma plays a character called Alice, who is she's a pretty uptight individual, and you'll find out for specific reasons if you go and watch the film, but I don't want to say too much because there's quite a lot of things that unfold as you watch the film. So I thought it'd be a lovely thing for our first show back on our little YouTube show after we took a couple of weeks break to come back and celebrate not only the fact that cinema is open and you guys can go and watch films in the environment they were made for, but also supporting female directors and independent film. So it's lovely to be able to do that with our guests on this week's show. So you'll see some clips of the film, you'll find out a little bit more about it, both from Jessica and Gemma. And yeah, I hope you enjoy it. So please go and see Summerland at the cinemas now. It's only going to be in cinemas for a couple of weeks, so get along and show your support. But in the meantime, sit back and enjoy Jessica Swale and Gemma Arterton talking about their film, Summerland.
Hi, Edith.
Hi! So nice to... I'm good. How are you? You look awesome.
Oh, thanks. I tried to I was sitting in the kitchen and I was like, all anyone can see is like all the dirty washing up. I think I've got to move and go somewhere more respectable.
People like to have something to believe in. It's what everyone wants. Ooh, magic. Stories have to come from somewhere.
Miss Lamb? We were expecting you an hour ago.
Sorry?
Frank? This is Miss Lamb, your new guardian.
I don't want him.
We've all got to do our bit.
I'm supposed to go to school.
Go on, then.
Where is it?
This is Frank. He's an evacuee from London. Miss Lamb, I know you're busy writing your stories.
Academic theses.
They don't look very interesting.
I wrote them. Do you believe in heaven?
Yes.
Well, you shouldn't. What happened to all the people who died before the Christians? Where did their souls go? Summerland.
Where's Summerland?
It's a myth.
Stories have to come from somewhere.
Oi!
It's my dad's. In 21 Squadron.
Well, then. What are you waiting for?
Why don't you have a husband?
Why don't you have a wife? There was someone. Once. Here we are. So I say, make the most of it.
Was she the one you loved?
Would you think it was strange?
No.
It's Frank here,
What is it?
his father. We just had the telegram.
Life is not kind. Anguish is inevitable. What matters is how you deal with it.
Poor little lad, having to bear it on his own.
He's not on his own.
Nobody knows how to be a parent. But you two. Gosh, you make quite a pair.
Such a beautiful story, and I think I mentioned to you about how it feels. I don't know, it just feels such an inclusive film without feeling like it's got a headline of being inclusive in a way. Do you know what I mean? It just feels like a beautifully told story that is just really clever and emotional and funny, without it kind of going, it has to be about this and it has to be about that.
Well, I think that was a really conscious decision, because I'm just, you know, particularly working with people like Gugu, who I have known forever and who I love dearly, and I've always admired her work. And, you know, we became friends on our very first job together back in, I think it was probably 2001.
Wow.
In the theatre, when we both were bunking off our final terms of our respective courses to run away and actually take a job when it got offered. And I've just watched her grow so much as an actress, and I think she's so fantastically talented. But so many, in her earlier career, so many of the times when she got offered a fantastic role, particularly those lead roles, they're always in stories to do with race. And I think that's just been, you know, par for the course in the industry, that if you have a fantastic actor of colour, then they can take those roles, but only if the story requires it. And I just think you just, you know, cast an actor for their spirit. And I cast her because Vera is the sort of charismatic whirlwind that knocks Alice off her feet. And so it was nice to cast her for that reason. And of course it also, I mean, I feel really passionately that we ought to be as diverse on our screens as we try and be in our audiences. So that was a great bonus. But yeah, I feel like it was really nice to make a film about an interracial relationship and about a gay relationship, where neither of those things were what defined that relationship.
And particularly with that period as well. Do you know what I mean? I think, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd only ever seen films about gay couples where the breakup was about the fact that it was too difficult to be gay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not my sort of area of expertise. I don't think I've seen an enormous amount of LGBTQ cinema, but I think that if films get into the mainstream cinema and celebrate those stories, it's so often about the troublesome nature of like how much of a burden it is, that to deal with that sort of you know, the way that sexuality is seen. And so this story is about two women who happen to fall in love with each other, but they can't be together, not because they're both women, but because they want two different things from a relationship. And actually it was the same thing I was sort of going through at the time. I was writing about my own experience, but like with a guy, it didn't make any difference. But you know.
Absolutely, that's the whole point, and that's what's so beautiful about your writing.
So this was the first time I wrote a film that was specifically for the cinema from scratch. And so I kind of asked myself at the beginning of that process, why write for cinema? What can you do? And I kept on thinking, well, why would I want to shoot something that was a reflection of absolute everyday life when that's something that we can see without going to the movies? What can you get from the movies that is specific to that? You know, imagination and magic and something beyond our everyday experience. And I really believe in the power of you know, imagination and being able to see possibilities. I think that's great. Like the arts can be so fulfilling and so hope-filling as well. And so I really wanted to write a story that had some magic realism in it, because I thought if we're making a film for the cinema, then let's make it cinematic. And I've always loved magic realism because I love the what if as well. Like sort of like, if there is a possibility of something beyond, what could that be? You know, I'm a Pisces and a bit of a dreamer, so that's not really a surprise. But the folklore then started coming into it, because the more I started thinking about landscape and Englishness and what this woman would do, I thought she was a historian, and then that wasn't quite enough. So I started thinking, oh, what if she was into myths and legends, but through her experience, somebody who loves the idea of magic, but has then absolutely squashed it because her life experience has turned her into a bitter cynic. I like the idea of someone not believing in magic, and then the importance of this kid who turns up that actually makes her question everything that she knows and wonder whether magic might exist. But the truth of it is, those stories like the Fata Morgana myth and the notion of Summerland as a sort of pagan heaven, I've twisted them a little bit, but they're all real stories. And amazingly, the newspaper article that Alice looks at, that Frank reads, about the fact that the people of Ramsgate at the end of the 1800s were looking out onto the sea and saw Dover Castle floating above the ocean. That's verbatim. That article,
Wow.
really, word for word. People were standing on the cliff, seeing a castle floating in the sky. And it's just refraction and refraction and refraction. If you did believe in magic and you saw that, you wouldn't think, oh, well, what an interesting trick of the light. And if you were somewhere or someone who was looking for or imagining, trying to seek evidence that there might be some sort of heaven or something beyond, if you've lost someone, if you see anything like that, I think when you're in that position, you do start to layer that on top of whatever you really see.
Oh, Lord.
I will go to the police.
They're just children.
Or buy a shotgun. It's my property. I won't have it.
Perhaps if you didn't provoke them. Miss Lamb! Miss Lamb!
Upon the heat and flame of thy distemper, sprinkle cool patience, sir, as the bard said.
Yeah. Shakespeare didn't have to deal with Alice Lamb, though, did he? But he might have said, get thee under the table and hide.
Hi, Gemma.
Hey, Edith. How are you?
I'm good, love. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, you know.
Yeah, cracking on. What we
Cracking
could do. Yeah. Oh,
Sick of being at home, though. I'm
Oh,
like, come on now.
Yeah, do you know, I need people. I miss people and just like...
And how much do you miss going to like gigs and stuff? I mean, big time.
I had a bit of a moment last night. Someone had put a picture up and I was just like, oh man, should have been here doing that sort of thing. But do you know what? You can't dwell on it. What's amazing though is that we still feel like we're getting this brilliant feed of creativity.
Yeah.
And people are finding ways and means of doing things, but luckily you guys had already filmed and done this beautiful film. Congratulations. I loved it. I had all the emotions with this experience of watching this film. I mean, all of them. I'm not sure. You know, like when people joke about babies being able to like do like to burp, laugh, and kind of laugh at the same time.
When did you burp?
I not quite that, but I mean in terms of all the emotions in one thing kind of coming out. It was amazing. Did Jess send you the script? How did you learn about this story that she wanted to tell? And because you got fully involved in terms of not just, you know, being kind of a star in it, but also producing it as well.
Yeah, so it came about in a kind of unconventional way, really. So Jess and I worked together on Nell Gwyn, and then after that we became friends. And I'd heard about this film Summerland that she'd written, but no one had got on hold of it. It was sort of out there. So I asked her to send it to me, and not as an actress, as a producer, because I heard that the story was about a middle-aged woman and an evacuee. So she was written older originally. And I read the script and cried my eyes out. I had all the emotions, like you said. My breath was taken away. I was laughing, crying, the whole lot. Snot, probably, who knows. But I was just, it's rare actually to read a script and get that feeling. And then I remember calling Jess afterward and saying, oh my God, we've got to make this film. I'll produce it. You've got to direct it. And at that time, she hadn't directed anything on screen. We then went on to make leading lady parts, a short film. That was her first thing that I produced, she did.
Hi, you must be
Amelia?
Stacey.
Felicity for the lady part. I'm Florence. Reading for the leading lady part. I'm Gemma.
And what did you think of it, the part?
Well, I loved it. It's just a great part. I think she's great.
How do you see her?
She was feisty. Feisty?
She's bold. She's the one calling the shots. I think she's pretty...
Thank God.
Clever. She's pretty clever. That's not what you're going for.
Well...
No.
I mean, we hadn't really...
No.
Clever's not really something we...
Want or care about at all, actually. You do realise this is the leading lady part. Should we have a read?
And then Jess said to me, well, you should play Alice. I was like, oh, I mean, wow, I'd never even considered that. And so she rewrote it to accommodate my age. And actually it worked out better for the Vera love story. It meant that, you know, we shifted the dates around slightly and actually worked out better that way. And then we worked on it for about a year before we made it, just getting the, you know, the dialogue right for me and my speech patterns. And it was great. I love working with writers. And so, you know, coming on at such an early stage was just a joy because we really got to collaborate. So that's how it came about.
It feels like, you know, it feels like in terms of where we are with the kind of, you know, the industry, and I know you've been such a great advocate for so many brilliant campaigns in terms of making sure that representation is there. And I think that this is a great example of a story that has fantastic representation across you know, a number of kind of individuals and their situations, whether it's sexuality, whether it's race, and it's the way it should be. And it's not something that the film draws attention to or makes part of the, it's you know, it's who they are, it's what they are. And I think it's so refreshing, so wonderful to see that.
Yeah, I think that's very much a Jessica Swale trait, actually. I mean, Gugu Mbatha-Raw played Nell Gwyn originally, who was obviously a historical figure that was not Black. She was, you know, and so that's very Jess Swale, and she casts people and writes for the person that has the soul of the character. And we definitely felt that when we were casting Vera. We wanted someone who just was this ray of sunshine and energy and could knock this character off their feet to the extent that she would never ever get over losing her. And someone like Gugu, you just would not get over it. She broke
just looking at that face all day, you'd be like, oh, I miss it so much.
Yeah, but also I think, you know, it's important that we wanted to tell the story also about two people that were in love that it didn't work out for them and they happen to be gay. It doesn't matter what their sexuality is, really.
Absolutely.
And there were so many other things. I mean, you know, we also had, this was the first film that I worked on that was genuinely a 50-50 split in the crew. And that was another Jess Swale absolute, we must do this. And we really pushed for it. And it just totally changed the experience of working.
Did it?
I'd never worked on a film with so many, apart from the short film we did, which was almost, I think it was 98% women. It was just a different vibe. Usually on a film set, you've got your sparks and electricians. They go over there and they have all their guys in jokes and it's all very geezery. And then you have the makeup department, costume department, which tends to be more female. And they're separate. And on this, we had female electricians, first female electrician I'd ever worked with. We had the camera crew was predominantly female, apart from the DP. And it meant that at lunchtime, I know this is so ridiculous to say, but it really makes a difference. We all ate lunch together. There was no like, I'm going to go and sit on that table. And it created this feeling of everyone together making this project. There was real pride. Everyone felt very involved. It was just lovely. It was really, that's what it should be like. And I take my hat off to the producers and Jess for like pushing for that. But it also is reflected in the fabric of the film and what the film is and what it stands for and the issues and everything. So I'm proud of it for that reason.
Yeah. You've worked with young people before. I don't want to call them children. You've worked with young people before. Oh my God, Lucas Bond literally comes on screen and makes the world a better place. He's extraordinary. What a brilliant, he's got some kind of spirit about him. He's extraordinary. Yeah. Wow, what a young individual.
Oh, yeah, it was quite an extensive search to find him for various reasons, because we needed to, without giving anything away, he needed to, you know. Yeah. So, but also we needed to find someone that had that almost magical quality to them. He's almost like a little fairy or pixie or something. Like he needs to, yeah, there's something otherworldly about him, and he really does unlock something in Alice. And Lucas as a person is that. I mean, he is so funny and charming and a positive, and he didn't, considering that this was a big role for a young actor to take on, he didn't freak out about it. He enjoyed every second of it, and he just has that quality. And luckily for me, you know, kids these days are so much older than, you know, even I was at 11 or 12. He was someone that I could have a really good frank chat with, and, you know, he became like a pal.
Yeah.
And he didn't take offense to when I was being nasty to him in the scenes. You know, he knew exactly what was going on. So unlike other films where I've had to be very careful with the children, because they were too young to understand what was going on, he really did know what was going on. And it was great, actually, because he learned, he was sort of asking me all these tips on how, you know, like, what a big emotional scene tomorrow, and, you know, what do you do to get into it? And I taught him some little tricks, and it was just lovely seeing it.
Yeah.
It was so sweet. Yeah, he's a
so
special
good.
one.
And Dixie as well, the pair of them were brilliant together, I thought, as well.
She's really talented.
Great. Yeah, really, really great. Is Summerland a real thing? Because after watching the film as well, I'm like, I want to read about it. I believe, kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? 'Cause I love all that kind of stuff. It's like, I'm like, is it, I need to go to the coast, I want to go, you know, it's like, I love that idea where you learn about, you know, it's weird, like I was just watching Mrs. America on TV, and I love that whole, that amazing dramatization of that time of you know, of the world. And so for me, it's like, oh, I want to go learn more about these people. But you know, and a similar thing with Summerland, it's like this incredible kind of backdrop sort of mythical thing to the whole story is beautiful. And it's like, I'm like, is it a real thing? Does it exist? Where did Jess get this idea from and all that? Did you feel the same when you first read the script as well?
Yeah, well, there was so much more of that in the original script, and that we shot that didn't make the film about, there was a scene that I loved, actually, which is where she's explaining about all this folklore to him and trying to freak him out with it and scare him.
Yeah.
And it just was an excessive scene. It didn't really need to be there, but it was good fun to do. But Jess is really, she loves all, paganism is a huge influence for her in her storytelling, and she wanted to explore that kind of ancient spirituality and belief before Christianity came along. And so, and then there is stuff like, I did not know about Fata Morgana, which is the mirage thing.
Yeah.
And that is a thing. You can go online and you can see all these different Fata Morganas, all these different mirages that are all over the world. People see things, floating islands and floating buses going through the air and all sorts of things. And it is obviously, you know, like a trick of the light. But obviously there's all of these stories, all of these myths come from somewhere, because people see them, and whether they are, you know, scientific or not, or, you know, there is the possibility that there is something else out there, which I just love how Alice her job is to disprove myth and magic, and yet by the end of the film she admits that she really does believe, and there's something really special about that. And I've always been drawn to magic realism in storytelling. I just love being anything that kind of pushes it a little bit further, and I think that's what Jess wanted to accomplish with this, was, you know, take something every day and what if there is magic? What if, you know, this little boy can see, you know, other things, and
I think the last time I saw you properly was to talk about The Escape, which I really wanted to, because with this whole situation that we find ourselves in, you know, we're kind of still have the access to watch things on streaming and things at the minute before cinemas are open, and it was something that I wanted to make sure I drew people's attention to, because I think it's a really fantastic and important film, and beautifully made and acted by yourself and Dominic. And so I think that was the last time that we properly spoke work-wise about stuff, but I thought that was a great film as well.
Thank you. And Edith, like there's actually quite a lot of people that worked on The Escape, worked on Summerland.
Wow.
Our producer Guy Healy, who actually, it was on the set of The Escape that I remember I was doing a scene with one of the children where they just wouldn't stop crying, and and Guy came on, the producer, and he was like, and he had his iPhone. He's like, I'm reading Summerland. Oh, it's a brilliant script, isn't it? And I was like, yeah, we got to make this film. And it was on the set of The Escape, and then our DP Laurie Rose on The Escape was also the DP on Summerland.
No way, he's amazing. Laurie's a bit. Oh my God, Laurie's the best.
I know. And we were so grateful that he decided to do Summerland, because I just love working with him. We've got real shorthand. He knows where to go, how to catch the stuff. You know, he doesn't miss it. You kind of can trust him.
Yeah.
As an actor, and we just knew that he would bring something really beautiful to this. Was such a visual piece, and it was so obvious in the script that we needed a DP that just had that. And he also he lives in Brighton, which is just down the road from where we shot, so he sort of knows that area. And so yeah, it was because of The Escape, and Jess actually even came on set of The Escape to meet Guy and watch me working and stuff, which it couldn't be more different in terms of the outlook, and style. But yeah, and I loved The Escape. Was a really important film for me, because it was the first time I'd really been involved as a producer and had a real sort of voice, I think, in what I wanted to say. Thank you for bringing it up.
We've run out of time. I just wanted to say thank you. Thanks for your time. I love watching you on screen, but I love seeing where you are, you know, kind of throwing your weight as a producer as well. It's really exciting to watch that as well, Gemma.
Oh, thanks, Edith.
Gemma Arterton and Jessica Swale talking about Summerland. And Jessica is this week's guest on the podcast, actually, so you can hear Jess talk in a lot longer form with lots of music, because she worked with Harshka on the score for this film. She's brilliant. She's so great. It was really nice to chat to her about this creative process. So go and listen to her on the podcast. You can get it from your usual podcast providers. But in the meantime, I hope you can try and make your way to a cinema. I know it's not out in every cinema, so it might take a little bit of work to try and find it. I'll put some stuff up on socials to help you out. Go and support it, go and see it, and help that kind of, you know, the industry get those cogs turning again. We're going to be back with more guests. We've got some great guests lined up over the coming weeks. I'm looking forward to sharing those with you. In the meantime, please do check out the podcast, subscribe, comment, rate us. All that helps, as well as subscribing to this little YouTube show. There's a button somewhere. So I appreciate you watching and listening and supporting, and I hope you're well. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time.